Hey, IMC. This is your lesson about target audience. So you might want to take a look at this before you finish up your target audience assignment. Be sure to look at Canvas for the target audience worksheet that will help you with this assignment for your group. I think I just finished grading all of your promotional mix matrix and y'all did awesome. You have some really great ideas, and I think now that we can narrow down who your target audience is, that will help you narrow down which of your tactics you're going to go with for your plan. I am very excited. So I am going to share my screen. We're going to go over target audience and then we'll be good to go. So let me share this with you. Share. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So this is all about deciding and knowing how, we're gonna start in the middle here, it looks like. I'm gonna go backwards. How to go about finding who your good target audience is for this particular marketing strategy, and why that's important, because if you aren't speaking to your target audience directly, there's every possibility that you're gonna be missing the mark and not being nearly as effective as you would like. So who's your target audience? Why does it matter? And what can you do to meet them? You guys are seniors and you have been through all of these PR and advertising and marketing classes. So I feel very confident in knowing that you know exactly what a target audience is and who that is for you. But they are the group of consumers that you're aiming at, right? And you can break those down by a couple of different segments. First and foremost is by geographic. You know, that's the easy one. Where are your people located? Demographics, age, gender, education level, family size, all of those easy to account for systems. I mean, you can find most of those things in Facebook, for crying out loud. And then you move over to psychographic. So what are their values? What personality traits do they have? Interests, attitudes, motivators, those kinds of things. Pardon me. And then behavioral. What goes into the decision-making process for your consumers? And those are definitely things to think about. Because we've talked about the decision-making pyramid and the marketing funnel, and how people go from being completely unaware of your product to being a regular user of your product, and how important that is. So, sorry, be able to keep that in mind. Okay, so now moving on to why is it important to know who your target audience is? Just like this picture shows, you could totally miss the mark, right? Advertising and PR efforts are expensive. Marketing as a whole is expensive. So you don't want to miss the mark. You want to make sure that you are very well aware of who you are sending your information to and that they are receptive to your message. So all of that stuff is very important. The better you are at identifying your market and your target audience, the more successful your marketing tactics will be. You will be much more successful and you're going to have much happier clients if you are able to speak to your target audience in a very meaningful way. So who is your target audience? Clearly, those are the people who are most likely to buy from you. Remember, people who are already consumers are infinitely cheaper to market to than new customers, right? So it makes it easier to develop advertising for those people if you know exactly who they are. But it also makes it easier for you to develop new products if you know who your audience is. Because if you keep a finger on the pulse of your target audience, you know what they need and what they're missing, and they will tell you that. It can be more than one group of people. Sometimes your target audience is in a couple of different segments. You know, it might not just be one segment of people, and that's okay. But you do want it to be broken down into as small a number of segments as possible, so that you can tailor those messages to that group of people. You have to determine this before you create any of the work for marketing strategies. Now, I know this sounds a little bit backwards because I just had you do your promotional mix matrix. Now, I had you do that because this was all of the possibilities. This wasn't a list of, this is what we're going to do. This was all of the possibilities. And now you're going to have your target market to be able to help you whittle down what possibilities are going to make the most impact. Bang for your buck, right? Okay, so the graphic on the bottom of this screen I actually really like. How much can I eat as equated to your target market? So think about the red circle is the total available market, meaning that is everybody out there with money to buy things. And then the blue circle takes that down into a bit of a more bite-sized chunk in the people who are actually available within your market. So bringing that down to a more realistic number of all of the people who are actually in my nearest market. And then to the green circle, it takes it down to an even better bite-sized chunk of how many people am I actually interested in buying my product. So keeping those kinds of things in mind. So take it into a bite-sized chunk. It makes it more manageable. It makes your messages better. It makes you more successful. So there you go. And how do you find out who is your target market? There are a couple really key steps to go through. Looking at your potential customers, looking at your existing customers, and then looking at your competitors. Who's buying from your competitors? Because those people are definitely your potential target market because you want to steal with them. So you can also, other than doing by demographic and psychographic and all of those things, you can also identify a potential target market based on usage. So their current users, we're looking at Starbucks. Their current users, they have a range of how much they visit the store. Is it light? Is it medium? Is it heavy? So, you know, a heavy user, you're going to advertise differently than you might a light user, right? You're going to try to make a light user up to a medium user. And then lapsed users. That target market are people who haven't been in the last 30 days. And then that's completely different than the target market of users who maybe haven't been in the last 6 months. And then you have a completely other target market that is non-users. So you can see how this breaks down into several categories, and your messages for each one of these groups is going to be different, right? So if I send a message that is targeted toward people who are lapsed users who haven't been in the last 6 months, if I send that message to medium current users, that's going to cause some massive confusion and probably not be effective for you, right? So defining your audience based on usage is also another great way to categorize where your priorities might be, right? So you might have advertising pieces that are targeted to specific groups at specific times to help you achieve set goals for that time period. So you can look at it this way as well, and is a good way to think about your target audience. Okay, so we already talked about these 4 different characteristics or segmentation approaches. Geographical is kind of one of those that it can be helpful, but it might not always be helpful. So do keep that in mind. Demographic is your age, gender, family size, all of those pretty easy to come by information. Psychographic, you have to dig in a little deeper for those kinds of things, and you might not always get to the very heart of that. And same goes for behavioral, right? So knowing where your people are, those can require some pretty intensive research to find out that kind of information. So how you go about this, right? You have your chart, like we showed you, what can you eat? The entire population of purchasing power. And then you take it down to, well, in reality, who are the main people who purchase products like mine? So that's that realistic available market. And then you're going to look at it then you might even separate it, by usage or lifestyle, or make yourself different segmented audiences and break them down into smaller groups. So you've got everybody in the world, people who actually might buy my product, actual potential target market, and then within that are going to be little circles of, women age 35 to 70. That's a really big group. Or Latina women age 35 to 45. You might have specific characteristics groups and broken them into segments, right? So you're going to break them down into tiny little groups. And then you want to see, can I make those tiny little groups? Are there some that I can add on? So, have you ever watched dish bubbles in a sink? And that sometimes they merge together and make a bigger bubble. So you're going to do that with your segments. You're going to break them up into tiny little bubbles and then take a look at which ones can you glom onto each other to make a bit of a bigger bubble, because you are not going to be able to market to every tiny little bubble. You need to categorize them in feasibly sized groups that are going to be interested in similar messages. So that's what you're going to look at with your target audience. How do I group these in ways that this set of people are going to be ready to receive a similar message? So if this group is set for this message and this group is set for a completely different message, these 2 bubbles can't meet, right? They need to stay apart. So those are 2 different potential target audiences. So that's a good way to look at it. They're dish soap bubbles in your sink. Everybody loves to do dishes, right? We're not tired of doing dishes. Yes, we are. Okay. So here are some really great questions that you can ask yourself to determine your target market. Where are you international, national? What's your scope? What is your actual product or service? What are your benefits? What features do you offer? What needs do you meet? How old is your ideal customer? What level is their completed education? Where are they located in relationship to where you are located? What do they do for a living? How much money do they make? Are they easily led? Are they very active on social media? Do they have any specific interests or hobbies? Are there ways and things about their life that could impact how your message is being received in a positive way? All of these are really good questions to ask when you're thinking about who is your realistic target audience. I realize this is a really long list. Some of them might not apply, but really think about your different segments and look at these questions and see what matches where. Okay, another couple of things you need to think about is why people actually buy things. That will help you determine if somebody is actually your target market or not. They want to meet basic needs, right? That's one reason why people buy things. Another reason that people buy things is to solve problems, right? Or to make themselves feel good. Depending on what the product or service is, it could fall within any of these three categories. So you need to decide, where does your product or service fall within this category and why? Be able to defend your product that helps people solve problems because why? That will help you determine, one, who is your target market, but also what you need to tell them to help them solve that problem and meet that need. Okay, so as part of your worksheet, I have something very similar to this features and benefits table. So if you're thinking about toothpaste with a whitening formula, okay, so that's a feature, right? It tells you that the toothpaste brand has a whitening formula, but the benefit is not whitening formula. The benefit is a beautiful smile or whiter teeth or more confidence because you have a beautiful smile, right? Those are the benefits. Those are what you're selling. That's what your target audience is actually interested in. A car with anti-lock brakes and extra airbags. Those are features, right? And they're safety features, but that's not actually the benefit. The benefit isn't safety. The benefit is, I know that when I leave my house in my car with my kids, that if we are to get into an accident, we are more likely to be okay. That is the benefit, right? So it's not as easy as one to the other. You have to really think about, if I am selling this feature to a specific person, what benefit do they get from it? So an airline with no baggage fee, right? So when on the surface, it means that I don't have to pay for my bags. I can take whatever I want. That's great. But the benefit might actually be that I'm going on vacation and I'm going to have enough room to bring back souvenirs to my kids from vacation because I don't have to worry about paying to check my bag. I get a free bag checked. So it's not necessarily, oh, free bag. Sure, that's great. But the benefit is something deeper, and you really have to think about what that benefit is for your audience. Universities with smaller class sizes, you see the benefits for that in their ads all the time. They do a really great job. The benefit is one-on-one attention. But if you dig a little deeper than that, it is a student body with a better level of connectivity with each other and their professors, right? I feel connected to my professor, and then I'm going to be more successful because of that connectivity. So think about the surface level benefit and then dig a little deeper. I think that will definitely help you derive who your target audience is and what they're actually interested in. So definitely dig deep into what the benefit is. And you will know when you are there, when you reach the ever popular Oprah aha moment, right? So here's a great observation. People are habitual coffee drinkers and design consistent behaviors to serve their habits, whether that be a special mug, a particular coffee machine, or maybe their favorite coffee shop on the way to work, and the coffee gets served, right? The insight into that is that coffee drinking is actually a ritual, right? It is a total experience. It's not just drinking the coffee. It's the brewing of the coffee or the picking it up or going to your favorite store or grinding the beans and getting things ready. Like, it is a ritual practice. And a lot of times if people's ritual practice gets messed up, it ruins everything, right? So I am a coffee drinker. I like Starbucks. I also know that if I leave my house late, I do not have time to stop before I get to class, usually, when we're going to class. So I know that my day is thrown off if I don't get to have either my coffee at home or my trip to Starbucks, right? So It is a ritual. There is more meaning to it than just the regular cup of coffee that we're taking on our way out the door. So keep that in mind. There's that aha moment when you derive that actual insight that this is more than just purchasing shampoo or makeup or whatever. There's more to it than that. You need to find what is that insight that drives people to take action. So for example, listening to the radio, there is that moment where you find that perfect station. So how does that work with you guys? Or for the home buying process and the mortgage process. As a home buyer, recent home buyer, I can tell you it's a lot of work. And that moment when you feel like you have done a good job and you've got a good rate and you've signed the deal and you're paying your mortgage, there is that moment where you're just like, you feel very accomplished. So thinking about what is that insight, that the benefit people get from your product or service. Finding that little nugget of wisdom will help you a lot along the way. Okay, so back to segmenting your audience. Once you have kind of broken your groups into their tiny little soap bubbles, and now you're starting to merge them into the larger bubbles that cover more information, you are going to want to start thinking about the specific characteristics that each of those target audiences might have. So it is natural to want to target as many groups as you possibly can, but remember that's not effective, right? You have a limited bandwidth, and a lot of you have almost no budget with your clients to do this. So you need to make them as big of segments as you can without ruining the fact that the group is all going to be exposed to it and receptive to a similar message. So as big as you can while maintaining the ability to send the same message to them. Okay, so a couple of things I want you to remember why you can't just have, here are all my tiny little soap bubbles, I'm gonna send them a message and them a message and them a message. You will not be effective in that. You will not be able to reach them. It will turn off those who could have easily been brought in because they're being over marketed. It's also very, very expensive. So just kind of keep those things in mind. This graphic shows you the benefits of segmentation and why it's important. You just have to be really thorough about segmenting your audience and then grouping them back in ways that make sense. So keep that kind of thing in mind. We've been over these a couple of times, but just knowing what each one of these different groups is, the demographic, psychographic, and behavioristic segmentation options. You can find all of this information online, or most of it. Now, behavioristic, you might not be able to get too deeply into right now, and that's okay. But if you can find it, definitely utilize it to your advantage. So this is a chart that shows how affiliated a potential customer group or target audience might be to your brand. This is kind of an exercise to help you whittle down who your real target audience is. This does not have to be included in your assignment, but it might help you if you're having a hard time really deciphering who your actual target audience is. So what you are looking at here is you are going to mark how people might fall in each of these categories, their perception of you or how they feel about you. Do they feel like your price is high, medium, or low? Your quality, high, medium, or low? Variety of services, and any things that might relate to you. So some of you don't have packaging, but you might have another feature or benefit that you need to list into this category. Again, this does not have to be included in your target audience assignment. It's just something to help you kind of really whittle down who your real target audience is. Okay. So once you have your segments, you're going to do a bit of research into them to be able to describe them, right? You need to know who they are, where they are, what they do, how much money they make, and how interested they might be in your good or service. Use legitimate resources. There's always the UTA library along with all of their databases. There's WARC for case studies that you can look at for similar products and who they're using as their target market. There are Nielsen ratings. The Pew Research Center has outstanding information on just about every category, as does Gallup. The US Census is currently being taken for 2020. However, you are going to find last census data available should you need to find that. So you can find, age, gender, how sensitive they are to price, zip code, race, marital status, education, and income. Whatever you can find to help describe your target audience, the better. The better you know them, the more able you are to market to them in an effective manner. So dig in a little bit. And then after you have narrowed it down to your specific segments, you're going to create personas. Now, they don't have to look like this beautiful graphic here. If you have the capability to do that, I'm not going to stop you, but I'm also not going to make you. So for this one, they're targeting millennials, and they give you a bit of a description. They tell you how much they're going to spend, that it's not easy to get into their head, that they're willful. They give you some research from the Pew Research Center there, that they're price oriented, and that they're app happy. So you can see some insights into them that give you a little bit of a detail as to who they are. But a persona is a written, just like this, and it can be written out like this. It does not have to be in graphic in nature, but it gives you who your target market is, tells you their gender, their income level, their education level, and gives you a bit of a description of who they are. And that description will help you as you get ready to craft your messages to target to this particular audience. Now, you might have more than 3 target audiences, and that's okay, but you want to narrow it down to as few as possible for this particular strategic plan. If you can narrow it down to 1, that's great. I would say 3 or fewer would be where you need to be by the time we get ready for you to move forward with determining what your tactics are going to be. So I would challenge you to come up with 3 or fewer specific target audiences as part of your target audience assignment. Again, you can find all of that on Canvas. The assignment information. I also posted it to Microsoft Teams, so you should be able to find it in both locations. So be sure to check that out. Be sure to let me know if you have any more questions about the assignment. So after you have figured out who your target audience is and you have set up your personas, you want to make sure that you look back at your research and see, do the target audience that I dive down to, does that actually match the research that I've done? And if it doesn't, you might need to go back and reassess, because if your research doesn't match the target audiences that you've landed on, that means that you're not paying attention to your research and that you're going off something else entirely. So your target audience is dependent on what the research says. If the research shows that your target audience are Hispanic women from ages 45 to 60, and you've decided that your target audience is white women from 21 to 35, you didn't pay attention to your research and your marketing is going to be off. So make sure that you go back and you check that those things match. Okay. All right. See if there's anything else that I want you to know. Here you go. Make sure, the second bullet point on here, let your research guide your decision for your final target audiences. Do not choose who your audience is and then do research to reinforce it. That's not how this works. You need to do the research, find out who about all of your potential target audiences, and then determine which are the most viable target audience segments for you to look at. Okay, I think that is about it. I'm going to post this slide, all of these slides, to Canvas along with this video, and you can have all of them along with all of the resources that I gave you this morning for the target audience assignment. Please do not hesitate to let me know if you have any questions, and we will get this all going. So if you need anything from me throughout the week, please shoot me a message on Teams or an email. Either is fine. I am happy to respond in any way that I possibly can, and we will make this work. So again, I hope you guys have a great week, and I look forward to hearing from you later.